Good evening, desert wayfarers. This evening, I'd like to do a video that might be a little controversial. And I want to talk about this particular device and other satellite tracking devices that you can use to send an SOS when you get into trouble. Now, this is the Garmin inReach Mini. Obviously, I own one. The subscription is expired and I don't use this anymore. And so the question I have for you is, how did we ever go camping in the 1960s, the 1970s, and the 1980s, and even into the 90s without such devices? And do these devices rob you from the expeditionary, exploratory, challenging experience? Does this take away your ability to make good and sensible judgment while you're out in the wilderness? Are you taking more risks because you believe you can just hit this button and someone will come get you? So, if you think back in history, in amazing explorers like Sir Captain Francis Richard Burton, who was part of the team that discovered the source of the Nile with John Henning Speaks. Okay, Amundsen going to Antarctica, Perry going to the North Pole, Scott also failing, in his attempt to reach the South Pole. Even folks in the modern times like Reinhold Messner, how would he feel about such a device? Are we becoming dependent on this, and do we take unnecessary risks because we have this device? So, as I say, I don't carry this with me. I own one, but the subscription, as I mentioned, has expired and I don't carry it with me anymore. So I know people have used this and it's saved their lives, but how did you get into that situation where you needed to hit that button, that SOS button? Now, here in the desert, I'm in the United Arab Emirates. They have an excellent search and rescue team. If you have cell phone coverage here in the UAE, depending on where you are, you would just dial 995 and that gets you in touch with the search and rescue team. And I believe that the United Arab Emirates has 5 helicopters and they cover overlapping areas. Here out in the desert, in the Great Western Desert, I believe they have 2 helicopters that can access out this far into the desert. Now, that said, no matter where you are, search and rescue is not going to miraculously appear to save you. So you'll be spending time out waiting for search and rescue. And from what I understand, some folks have actually spent 3 to 4 days waiting to be rescued. Now, I would ask this question to you. Could you have done a self-extraction? Could you and your partners have figured out a way to get you out within those 3 or 4 days while you were waiting to be rescued? And I guarantee you, in some parts of this world, no one is coming to get you. I used to live in Africa, and in Mauritania and in Burkina Faso, out in the Sahel, out in the Sahara, no one's coming to get you if you push this button and if you send an SOS. I guarantee it that there will be no one inclined or caring to come get you. So you have to be prepared for self-rescue, self-extraction, taking care of yourself or your partner. Now, I would suggest that you not travel alone in the desert. I do. I feel comfortable out here by myself, but I am actually in touch with other folks who know where I am. And that kind of gets me back to the old school methodology, how we used to go have adventure before we had satellite tracking devices, okay? Before we had GPS, you wrote a note, you told somebody where you were going to go, you told them where you were going, when you were going to return, all right? You left a note with someone who actually might care about you and want to find you if you got lost or you got hurt and you didn't show up on time. Maybe your boss at work, your friends, your wife, so on. Okay, we had folks that knew where you were and expected you back at a certain time, and would be taking the time to come look for you if you didn't show up on time. So the question I have to you, is this device stealing adventure from you? Okay, and are we overly dependent on such devices? And not necessarily the Garmin. There are other satellite beacons out there that'll send an SOS signal. Okay, so I'm kind of asking you to think about it before you purchase one of these, and they're expensive, and you have to have a subscription. And from what I look at the Garmin website, it's not always clear what countries these work in. Now, I understand the new Garmin inReach Mini 3 is using a different satellite system. So I think it's Elon Musk's satellite system, which I can't remember the name of. And I think that has a more worldwide coverage. But again, after you send that SOS and it goes to Garmin, who are they going to call? Depending on what country you're in. Obviously, if you're in North America, there are dedicated search and rescue teams. There's a search and rescue team here in the Emirates. But how long is it going to take them to come get you? So these are questions I kind of want you to ask yourself. And, is it worth carrying this device? And I know many of you are probably going to say, yes, of course it's worth carrying. I'm going to be a contrarian and take the opposite stance and say you need to take care of yourself. So it's the difference between expecting someone to come get you and being able to get yourself out of a difficult situation on your own. So something to think about, a little controversial topic. So keep on adventuring, my friends. Stay safe out there. If you are traveling in the desert, please tell somebody where you are and where you're going and when you're expected back. All right, have a good evening. We'll talk to you later.